vì đây là một sự kiện đào tạo nội bộ, nên là về cơ bản chúng ta có một quy mô khoảng dưới 20 người và được đào tạo hoàn toàn bằng tiếng Anh.
Nhiều quá.
Và nó thực hiện ở trong một buổi, nên là mặc dù là được đào tạo hoàn toàn bằng tiếng Anh, nhưng để đâu đó vì chúng tôi biết rằng là cái sàn về mặt ngôn ngữ nó sẽ không giống nhau bởi tất cả mọi người, nên là chúng tôi có cái hỗ trợ ngôn ngữ bằng việc là dịch các cái slide của anh Slava trên slide để đâu đó là chúng ta những người mà cần, những anh chị mà cần hỗ trợ về mặt ngôn ngữ thì chúng ta cũng có thể bám theo cái nội dung như vậy. Cái cách của chúng ta thì đó như là internal training thôi, nó như là một đào tạo nội bộ thôi, nên là cũng khá là đơn giản. Tức là gì ạ? Sau đây thì anh Slava sẽ tiến hành đào tạo, và bất kỳ mà chúng ta có câu hỏi, tức là thông thường thì mỗi một slide chẳng hạn mà chúng ta có câu hỏi, có những cái cần thảo luận vân vân, thì chúng ta sẽ cứ để chat box hoặc raise hand, đúng không ạ, để chúng ta cùng thảo luận. Bởi vì đây là kinh nghiệm, đây là cái webinar thứ 4 mà Slava làm với chúng tôi rồi, nên là chúng tôi cũng rất là biết rằng là trong quá trình ấy, chúng ta có những câu hỏi chúng ta cần thảo luận, rồi ngay cả những cái vấn đề về ngôn ngữ chúng ta không hiểu chẳng hạn, thì ở trong phòng theo kinh nghiệm của chúng tôi bao giờ cũng có những anh chị chuyên gia về giới. Vì bản thân tôi không phải chuyên gia về giới, tôi là chuyên gia về kinh doanh, về khởi nghiệp, đổi mới sáng tạo là nhiều hơn. Và thì cũng rất là mong rằng là các anh chị chúng ta hỗ trợ nhau để cùng nhau hiểu các cái vấn đề mà ngày hôm nay được truyền tải bởi giảng viên. Thì đấy là cái cách thức mà chúng ta sẽ tổ chức cái sự kiện hôm nay. Đấy là những cái mà tôi cũng muốn chia sẻ từ cái góc độ về mặt tổ chức của sự kiện. Thế còn lại rằng là tại sao mà chúng tôi tạo ra một cái Facebook group, bởi mục tiêu đó là gì ạ? Chúng tôi không muốn cái việc đào tạo nó chỉ dừng lại ở câu chuyện đó, mà như chúng tôi nói bắt đầu, tức là gì ạ? Với mục tiêu là chúng tôi muốn mở rộng cái mạng lưới cộng sự của mình với những cái nội dung mà nó khá là mới mẻ, và thứ hai nữa là để cho mọi người tiếp tục cùng nhau chia sẻ cái câu chuyện này từ những người có thể có kinh nghiệm và những người ít kinh nghiệm chẳng hạn. Thì đâu đó chúng ta cũng thực hiện được sứ mệnh của mình bằng việc là mở rộng ra cái kiến thức về cái mảng về gender equality này. Thì đấy là lý do mà tại sao chúng tôi tạo ra cái nhóm Facebook, và hy vọng là sau cái sự kiện thì chúng ta vẫn có thể tiếp tục kết nối, hỗ trợ cho viện VID, cũng như là chúng ta cùng nhau có thể nâng cao cái năng lực liên quan đến các cái vấn đề về làm việc cùng với các vấn đề về bình đẳng giới và nhân quyền nói chung ở Việt Nam. Thì tôi cũng có một cái vài lời như thế vậy. Và bây giờ thì tôi sẽ xin, thứ nhất là bây giờ tôi muốn hỏi là các anh chị có cái câu hỏi gì hoặc là có một cái phản hồi gì vừa trên cái phần giới thiệu của tôi không? Và sau đây thì tôi sẽ quay trở lại cái buổi đào tạo cho anh Slava. Tuy nhiên chắc là để trước khi bắt đầu ấy, thì tôi cũng xin phép là chúng ta sẽ cùng nhau bật cam lên và từng người một sẽ giới thiệu mình là ai và đâu đó cái kỳ vọng của mình đối với cái buổi ngày hôm nay ạ. Và tất nhiên là sẽ được cái phần chia sẻ đó sẽ bằng tiếng Anh, để chúng ta sẽ anh Slava cũng sẽ nắm được các anh chị là ai luôn. Vâng, thế thì tôi cũng xin phép được bắt đầu cái phần giới thiệu của mình. Okay, Slava, are you still here? Still there? I don't really see you.
Hello, do you see me and hear me?
Yes. Okay. So now I would like to I just made a brief introduction, and now it's a little bit, a round table of self-introduction. Okay. In English. Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm Thắng. Actually, I'm founder and director of Center for Social Innovation, and also lead researchers of Vietnam, VID Vietnam Research Institute for Innovation and Development. So welcome to the webinar. Okay, next one. Phương Chi, I see Phương Chi next to me. Yeah, please.
Chị tắt mic rồi ạ.
Chi tắt mic rồi.
Okay, sorry, I tried to fix my camera.
No, it's okay now.
My name is Chi. I'm a lecturer in Vietnam Women's Academy, and I am also the lecturer on the gender and development yeah, in the gender and development faculty. And it's nice to meet you. And I also feel very interested in HB human rights based approach. Yeah, so I would like to update my knowledge on the gender and human rights approach. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So she's from the Vietnam Women Academy.
Great.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah. Okay. Next, I see Vân next to Phương Chi, please.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Vân Nguyễn and I'm a project coordinator at VID. So nice to meet you.
Great. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Vân. And next to Vân is Duy. Duy, please.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Duy. I am a lecturer in University of Medicine and Pharmacy at Ho Chi Minh City, so UMP, and I work in the rehabilitation department. So I work with a lot with the people with disability, handicap. So I really want to learn and to apply about the gender and human rights for healthy people and for handicapped. Yeah, it might be different. So yeah, I'll let you know. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome, Duy. And I see Vinh Anh Nguyễn, please.
Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Minh Anh. I'm currently research assistant at VID. Yeah, nice to meet you all.
Okay, welcome, Minh Anh. Cao Thanh Phong, please.
Thanks.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. I'm Phong. I'm a lecturer of Vĩnh Long University Technology, and in my it is my pleasure to have an opportunity to take a conference today, because my research focus on now is on the gender diversity in leadership. So it's I think it's very important and very useful for my research. Thank you a lot.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Yeah, next, Minh Hằng, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Minh Hằng. I'm currently a student at National Economics University. I'm also a communication intern in VID. Nice to meet you all.
Great, thanks.
Okay, and Doãn Thị Ngọc, Miss Doãn Thị Ngọc, please.
Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Your mute,
Great,
it's not
thanks.
working. The voice not working. No, still mute.
Probably just might need to speak a bit closer to the mic, to the microphone.
It seems not working, Chị Ngọc. No. Yeah, you will try. We'll back to you later. Huyền Đỗ, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Huyền. I'm the Vice Chairperson of Hanoi Association of Persons with Disability. And in my roles, I'm in charge of women issues in my organization. And at the moment, I'm leading the networks of women with disability in the north of Vietnam. So a lot of issues related to women issues. I would like to learn more about this. Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, it's great. Leland, please. Len, please turn on your microphone.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Len, and currently I'm an English teacher at the University of Languages and International Studies. So apart from my work at the university, I also work for British Council to facilitate ITC.
There's some issues, technical issues. Leland's. Okay, Mr. Thanh Tâm Cao, please.
the chance.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So my name is Tâm. I'm currently working at the University of Social Sciences and Humanity, Vietnam National University. However, now I'm studying in Taiwan, and I'm a PhD student in the Department of Social Policy and Social Work. And I feel that this kind of topic today is related to my research field somewhat in the future. I hope that I can study a lot from presenter and everyone. So welcome everyone.
Great, thanks.
Okay, Mr. Lê Văn Sơn, please.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Nam Thang. Good morning, Mr. Slava Balan and everybody. I'm Lê Văn Sơn. I come from Vietnam Women Academy. I'm the manager of economic and economics and investment department of business administration faculty. Yeah.
Thank you.
Actually, I'm not from gender field, but recently my project study, I focus on this field. So I need to update information and learn a lot about the gender field to make our research become more practical. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. What are others? Yeah. Vũ Minh Ngọc, chị Ngọc, please.
Hello. Do you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, that's great. Good morning, everyone. My name is Doãn Thi Ngọc. I'm from Hoa Sang University. So I'm a lecturer, I'm a course coordinator, and the founder of Gender Talk at Hoa Sang University. So that's it.
Okay. Yeah, nice meeting you. Yeah. So my daughter is joining Hoa Sang University shortly. Actually, she joined. Okay. Okay, chị Ngọc. Yes.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, Slava. Yeah, I'm Ngọc. My full name is Vũ Minh Ngọc. I'm a senior program officer from World University Service of Canada. It's a non-profit organization. We also support VID, and also we through like sending Slava Balance support to be the technical support for VID. I'm very pleasure to be here today, and I am so see many participants. You are all the professor and also a researcher or student to participate in the workshop today, and I'm hope the workshop will be successful, and I'm also really eager to participate in the workshop today to learn more about the gender equality, and also our project really want to scale up to integrate the gender equality into the program training and also training program, and also into the project activity in Vietnam in the future. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Yeah,
thanks.
thank you, chị Ngọc. What about others? Kim Chi.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kim Chi. I'm from to HRBA Thừa Thiên Huế progress from Accra, Vietnam. My role I support activity in Thừa Thiên Huế province about some in community excellence. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay. What about the others? We still have Vũ Ngọc Anh, Nguyễn Quốc Kỳ, Phương Thảo, and Nguyễn. I don't know who's that.
Nguyễn Nữ Nguyệt Anh.
Yes. Nguyễn Nữ Nguyệt Anh. Yeah, please, just because we don't see
Hello,
you.
Everyone. I'm Ngọc Anh, and I'm pursuing master degree in sociology at University of Mannheim. So yeah, I'm here to learn more about gender-based analysis.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, Nguyễn Đức Nguyệt Anh, Miss, do you want to introduce yourself?
Okay.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. My name is Anh, and I'm a lecturer of the Faculty of Sociology, University of Social Sciences and Humanities in Ho Chi Minh City. And some of my projects relates to gender. That's why I want to join the training today. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Okay.
Thank
And
you.
lastly, we have Mr. Nguyễn Quốc Kỳ. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm here. Hello. I'm a psychology graduate from USSH, and I'm currently an intern at Fulbright University, Vietnam. And I have been interested in this topic for a while, so that's why I'm here. And thank you. Imagine this workshop. Thank you for letting me know.
Okay, thank you. So I think everyone have their turn to introduce. Okay, so now the training is yours.
The floor is mine. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, and for introducing yourself. I feel really privileged to be among you, many professors, many people who already do a lot of work around the gender and human rights and social issues. So I think today we will have an interesting time together. And just to introduce myself at the beginning, so I'm Slava Balan. I'm originally from Eastern Europe, from Moldova. It's a small country, a former republic of the Soviet Union, which is now an independent country. However, the last 3 years, I live in Canada, where I pursue my doctoral studies at the University of Ottawa, and where also I teach a course, and the course is exactly about human rights-based approach. So my previous work concerned mainly human rights and gender. I worked with the UN agencies in Moldova and Ukraine on issues of applying human rights and gender equality in various fields, including local development, national policies, national laws. And now I'm combining my research at the University of Ottawa with some practical work also in some other countries. And I'm happy to provide some of my experiences and insights during this training. I will be presenting some slides, and I would like to ask you, whenever you have a question, please write in the chat box your question, or if you didn't understand something, just let me know. I'll come back and we will discuss once again the points. This training is a third training of the series of trainings which I had the pleasure and honor of delivering together with the colleagues from the VAD and Center for Social Innovation and Entrepreneurship. So the first two trainings, they concerned some introductory notions about gender equality. That was training number 1. And training number 2 concerned basically gender mainstreaming and gender-based analysis. Now, during this last training, at least during my volunteership with the colleagues, we will discuss and go through more sophisticated and more complex approaches to social issues, to innovation, to business, basically to everything. And these two approaches are in the title of our presentation today. It's gender-based analysis plus and human rights-based approach. These two approaches have many similarities, and I will discuss and present the similarities. but so far they exist under these two different titles. So I will start a presentation, which I will use to present my the topic. Just let me know whether you will see the presentation. I will now share the screen. So just to be sure that you see the presentation. So do you see the presentation now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, I will first. Okay.
The full screen. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Here's the full screen. So I will just start with some very basic ideas. I wasn't sure exactly how many of you took part in the previous training, so how many of you were familiar with gender equality ideas and concepts. So maybe some of the first slides will look very simple and familiar to you, but I just want to make sure that everyone is on the same page when we'll go into the gender-based analysis plus. So basically, that's the picture which I used during the previous presentation, number 2, to discuss the concept of gender equality. And kind of the main ideas, main takeouts from this picture, from the discussion which we had with the participants at that training, was that gender equality is not about this simplest equality of giving to everyone the same, or positioning everyone at this start point in the same situation, if the social circumstances and the social realities around women and men are different. So basically, as you can see on this picture, even though in the laws and policies very often there are no directly discriminatory provisions which discriminate women in comparison with men, because of the way how our societies are built and because of the old traditional stereotypes about the role of women and men, women very often have many obstacles which men do not have, or have them at a less extent. And that is why this run for life, or this life path for women and men, is quite often quite different. And to achieve the same results, women very often have to invest more time and more resources. So when we'll go to this kind of very basic definitions which we use to discuss gender equality. So gender equality, the definition which I provided, and it comes from the United Nations. Gender equality is about providing women and men with equal and equitable opportunities, power and resources for conducting a self-fulfilled life of their free and well-informed choice. So if we kind of break down this definition, it's gender equality is about opportunities, powers, and resources. It's about well-informed choice, and it's about free, unconstrained, and barrier-free choice. So basically, what the state and the public authorities are, and the society, should provide both women and men with, to provide with opportunities, powers, and resources, and to provide both women and men, particularly women, with a chance to make an unconstrained, barrier-free, and well-informed choice about their life. So women should not be constrained to choose a particular traditional life path. They have to have the opportunities to actually make a choice, any choice about their life. Gender equality is about acknowledging that there is no one single standard of being a real woman or a man. So gender equality is not about just, making women behave like the men or men behave like women. It's about recognizing that actually there should be no a single standard of being a woman or a man, and that many lifestyles and many life paths are good for both women and men. So it's equally fine to have a woman to be an engineer, a politician, a worker in the heavy industry, or a housewife, if she chooses so, and it's not constrained to do that. But it's also equally fine for a man to be an educator in the kindergarten, a school teacher, to be a house husband, and to take any other roles in the life, and at the same time be seen and be considered to be a man. So it's also about educating that women and men are equal, and there are no male and female professions and roles in life. Or better to say that that all roles and professions in life are good for both women and men. So there is no this delimitation of professions and roles in life in typically male and female. And gender equality is about providing opportunities, powers, and resources to pursue a life path of choice. So gender equality is not just about creating the new stereotypes or the new ways how the women and men should behave, but gender equality is about providing resources, opportunities, and powers for women and men to choose what they want to be in their life, and have these resources and powers to implement these plans or these dreams about the life. What are the main causes of the gender inequalities? So why we don't have the gender equality so far? There are many reasons or many factors which play into this gender inequality, but the main ones are obsolete man-centered traditions, gender stereotypes and prejudices, social structure and fabric discouraging gender equality, unfavorable state policies and systems, and disempowerment and underrepresentation of women in decision-making. I will not stop in big detail on these points now, as we have discussed them in more detail during the previous trainings. However, if you have a question to any of these points, just write it in the chat box. What are the issues, or what are the ideas or factors which built into the concept of the gender mainstreaming? So what gender mainstreaming is about? So first of all, we should start with the idea that socially women in most cases have a different life experience than men, because of varying social roles attributed to women and men, and different life opportunities. So despite the legal provisions which would say that everyone is equal, in reality, women and men in all societies of the current world, in Vietnam, in Canada, still to a various degree, but in all types of the societies, still have a different life experience. Still, women are more more doing the house-related activities in the life. Women more do cooking, cleaning at home, taking care of children, and men are more out of the house, earning money, fighting as soldiers, doing some other dangerous activities and jobs. So this is how it happened historically and traditionally, and this is what gender equality approaches try to change. But we should recognize that these realities are still with us, that even though there are many changes, positive changes, there is a lot of progress towards gender equality, still some of these realities are here. And these realities, which are different for women and men, should be acknowledged and should be considered when we think about the programs and activities. Next factor which needs to be considered when we speak about gender mainstreaming is that biologically women in some respects differ from men, either due to sex-related characteristics or by some average parameters. So biologically women on the average, of course, so we are now speaking about the average, are usually less tall than men, have less weight. Women can carry children, so before can be pregnant. Women cannot. Men cannot. Women can breastfeed. Men cannot breastfeed. So these are all the factors which could influence how different buildings, different activities, different things around us interact with women and the men. And these elements should be considered when we do any type of the analysis, or when we're thinking about gender equality. So because of all of these differences, most things, and I think probably all things, interact with women and men differently, and often produce different effects and impacts on women and men on the average. So basically, when somebody thinks, or when you see on the document written something like, you know, this policy or this thing or this approach is for everyone, for the benefit of everyone, very often in reality this means that it's mostly for the benefit and for the comfort of men, and less for the benefit and comfort of women. During our previous presentation, previous training, I brought many examples of how various objects, various things in life are designed and are made mainly with the men in mind. So I brought the examples of cars being designed mainly for men. So when the cars are tested for accidents, for crash, in an accident, very often the dummies, kind of these simulations of men who sit inside the cars, are men and not women. And when all the simulations are done, these trajectories of the debris, of the accidents are designed or are considered with only men in mind who sit inside these cars. Many of the buildings are also designed without consideration of women. So there are many buildings around us which have, for example, heavy doors, or who have narrow doors, which have narrow doors, or buildings which have equal number of bathrooms, toilets for men and women. While the data show that actually women on the average use toilet 2-3 times longer than an average man. So obviously there should be not an equal number of bathrooms and toilets in the buildings, but women should have more bathrooms and toilets. Another problem which already concerns men, quite a number of the majority of the bathrooms, public bathrooms in many countries don't have a table to change the diapers of a small child. So in Canada, for instance, bathrooms now, both for women and men, have a special table where if a parent, be it a man or a woman, wants to change diapers to their small kid, both women and men can do it. So they can enter in their toilet and open this table and change the babies. In many other countries, this is not the case. In cases when even such a table exists, it only exists in the toilet for the women and not for men, which basically does nothing more than consolidates these old stereotypes that only women should change diapers and only women should take care of the babies and kids. So there are many things, many other things which are mainly designed with men in mind and not women. So seeing and understanding all of these differences and all of these factors means seeing and understanding gender dimension of things. So when we look at the things on anything, how a smartphone is designed, how a car is designed, how a building is built, how a school is built, we should always think about not just people like, genderless people who use these buildings, but we should think about women and men using these buildings, using these cars, using these smartphones. We should recall how actually women and men interact with these things. And in absolute majority of cases, we will discover that women and men use them differently. In situation of some things, women may face some barriers which the men do not face, and vice versa. There are some situations when men face some barriers which women don't face. These are rare cases, but even this type of cases exist. So gender mainstreaming is about incorporation, about factoring in inclusion of gender dimension into all mainstream processes, into all processes, healthcare, education, social services, economy, public life, and so on so far. In any field which I mentioned and the ones which I didn't even mention, when you look at how women and men are present in this field or active in this field, you will discover that there are many differences which women and men find in interacting with these things and activities. I'll just have a look at many comments which you've provided already so far, just to make sure that we are on the same page. Okay, there are some comments in Vietnamese which I'm not sure whether I can understand.
Yeah,
so
we are discussing about the translation of gender mainstreaming in Vietnamese, because the current translation is like gender integration. It seems it's not shows the nature, the true meanings of mainstreaming. So we're discussing, and also we ask about the because the definition here is about gender mainstreaming is incorporating gender dimension in mainstream process, and it seems like in macro level, and the question is about micro level or not.
So basically, gender integration is a closed term which could be used. I mean, all the languages have their peculiarities, so I'm just not sure whether the Vietnamese language can accommodate. So, for example, in Russian and Romanian languages, the two languages which are my native languages, there is also no direct translation of the term gender mainstreaming. And we also basically translate integration, gender integration. In English, there is a slight difference that integration basically means that you integrate something like gender in our case, a kind of as a secondary, not necessarily as the main or primary part. So you kind of add gender into something which is already going on. So gender mainstreaming, it kind of stresses that gender should also become part of the main processes. So it shouldn't be like, a secondary element, shouldn't be like, an additional element to something which already exists without gender, but it should be seen as actually part of the main building, as part of the mainstream processes. So this is kind of the slight difference between these two terms. Okay, so let me proceed with the slide. There is a UN definition of the gender mainstreaming, which basically, in a slightly more sophisticated language, but speaks about these elements which I have presented at the previous slide. So according to the UN, gender mainstreaming is a globally accepted strategy for promoting gender equality. Mainstreaming is not an end in itself, but a strategy, an approach, a means to achieve the goal of gender equality. So gender mainstreaming is a methodology, an approach how to achieve gender equality. So mainstreaming involves ensuring that gender perspectives or gender dimension and attention to the goal of gender equality are central to all activities. You see here this word central. So that's what this mainstreaming basically means, that gender is made one of the central elements of the things. So gender equality are central to all activities: policy development, research, advocacy, dialogue, legislation, resource allocation, and planning, implementation, and monitoring of programs and projects. So as you can see from this list, gender mainstreaming applies to any policy, any research, any advocacy, legislation, and so on and so far. So it's about everything which is taking place in our society. So basically, gender mainstreaming has a place in the activity of everyone of us, be you from the social social policies area, or industry, or business, or any other field, IT. It applies everywhere. Just maybe to give you several other examples. So during our previous training, I also brought some examples of how gender inequality continuously persists when the new IT technologies are developed. So the two examples which I gave, one was with the voice recognition systems. So you know that there are many softwares which can be operated with your voice. So these softwares are these so-called voice recognition systems. So in many of these voice recognition systems, like Google Assistant or Alexa, they use male voices as the training sample. So most of these systems actually learn through various approaches on the basis of the male voices. So as the result, the data show that these systems understand much more and much better men speaking to these systems and not women. So quite often these systems just don't understand the women or understand them very poorly. So there was a described example in one of the books of a woman who was trying to operate her car as a driver through this voice command system, but the car would only listen to her husband, who was sitting beside her on the passenger seat. So she couldn't basically make commands on her car without her husband sitting by her. So that's an extreme example, but it just gives you an idea how the new technologies continuously could be just not incorporating, just again losing women in the process of this technological advancement. Or another much more everyday kind of example, most designs of the smartphones are designed for a hand of a man, which on the average is bigger than the hand of a woman. So this standard 5.5-inch smartphone, I think it's about 14 centimeters, if we take in centimeters, these smartphones fit more or less well into the hand of a man, but many women actually find it difficult to operate such a smartphone. And in addition to that, as you know, the pockets or the bags of women are usually smaller than the pockets and the bags of men. So these smartphones not easily get inside the pockets of women's dress or inside the bags which women carry with them. So that's another example of how apparently new technology, the smartphones, were not particularly designed taking account of also women, but were using mainly men as the models in a way for the customers. So gender mainstreaming is an approach to deal with all of these problems of not considering women, basically. Not only women, also men, but mostly women, because mostly women are ignored in all of this process and designs. Okay. So the gender analysis, and here somebody already mentioned this word macro. And here we can see that gender analysis could be roughly of two types, a macro analysis and micro analysis. So gender analysis, if we take it as a macro analysis, is the analysis of situation of women and men in a disaggregated manner, which means separately by groups, women and men, and of the immediate and underlying root causes of gender inequality. So the macro gender analysis is when we look at the situation in our society in disaggregated manner. So we look separately on women and separately on men, and we are trying to understand what are the reasons, root causes, what are the immediate, underlying, and root causes of gender inequality. These are three types of the causes which are behind gender inequality. So we try to understand why women actually lag behind. What are the barriers faced by women? Also, in some respects, men are also in a disadvantaged situation. So we try to identify the specific barriers faced by women and men in the situations when they are in a situation of inequality vis-a-vis each other. So that's what the macro gender analysis is about understanding why we have gender inequality. The micro gender analysis is the analysis of a specific document, a specific action or practice, also in a disaggregated manner, with a view of identifying its actual or potential effects and impacts on women and men. And these impacts could be positive, negative, or neutral, or blind. So basically, it's not looking at the situation of the society in general. It's looking on one simple thing. So, for example, a building or a classroom, how the building or the classroom is designed with the view of accommodating women and men. Are there specific features in this building or a classroom or a policy or a document which actually will disadvantage women? Or vice versa? Can these documents, policies, buildings, structures be accommodated or changed in such a way that instead of disadvantaging women or men, they actually create a situation when both women and men can use this building, structure, policy, or document equitably? And I specifically use this word equitably here because unfortunately very often, and my first picture was exactly about that, very often when people think about equality, gender equality, they think about giving the same to women and men. And as we already brought several examples, it's not about giving the same to women and men. It's about making sure that women and men in the outcome, in the result, get the same. So it's not about giving the same, it's about getting the same. And it's not the same thing. And the most simple kind of illustration or example to think about is this example with the toilets, which I already brought earlier. So to ensure gender equality is not to give an equal number of toilets to women and men. To ensure gender equality means to give an unequal number of toilets. So more toilets to women than to men, with the idea that in the outcome, both women and men will use the toilets without problems. So that's kind of the difference between the equality, this understood in these simplistic terms, and equitability. So gender equality is about equitability. It's not about just giving the same. Okay, so the next slide about the steps. So this again, I refer back to the training which was delivered in June. Practical steps on how to do the gender analysis, both macro and micro gender analysis. So there are 5 basic steps. So number 1, we need to gather gender disaggregated data. Data on broken down by women and men. So for example, the data could be, but should be about everything. Yes, somebody about inclusive language. That's right. You are completely right. We did discuss this on the very first training, that there are many gender identities. It's not just women and men. It's also some other gender identities, such as non-binary people or agender people. And when I'm saying gender, when I'm saying women and men, I do not mean that there are just these 2 genders, but just for the simplicity and shortness of my discussion, it covers these terms when I'm saying people of all gender identities. So I can use all the 4 or 5 denominations, but I think it will just take more time. But I'm just doing this disclaimer that during our first training, we did discuss the fact that there is a difference between sex and gender. Yes, you are right. There is difference between sex and gender. There are many gender identities. You can propose a terminology which you want me to use. I'm fine using the terminology, just with it should be a little bit shorter for the sake of our presentation. I just don't see who is writing the comment, but whoever is writing this comment, please. Yeah, I'm fine using any terminology which make our presentation inclusive and short. So far, I didn't identify a shorter than saying women and men. I can say and people of other gender identities, but if you come up with something shorter, I will be happy to take it on board. But yes, just for everyone in this group, there are not just women and men. Since gender identity actually is about how the people perceive themselves, how they position themselves in the society, a person could feel, could perceive herself, himself, or themselves in many different ways, regardless of the body in which this person is. So basically, when we are speaking about gender accommodation and gender mainstreaming, we are not speaking just about people who self-identify themselves as women, not just about people who self-identify themselves as men. We're also speaking about people who self-identify themselves in other ways, like non-binary, like neither women nor men, or people who do not identify themselves with a gender, like agender people. These people, their situations should also be accommodated when we're speaking about gender mainstreaming. So coming back to these steps, practical steps. So first we need to gather gender disaggregated data, so broken down by women, men, and people of other gender identities. Then we need to analyze this data to identify the gaps, the gender gaps. So what are the gender gaps? These are the differences in the rates of enjoyment, into the degree of enjoyment of a particular service or a particular good between the people of different gender identities, between women, men, and people of other gender identities. So that's step number 2. So we do not just collect the data, but we need to see the gaps. So for example, if we identify that in our university, there are more men than women compared to the distribution of such people in the society, women and men, then there is something wrong with the way how the university operates. Because usually if there is a free choice, if there are opportunities provided, powers provided, then women and men should be found in the university in more or less equal proportions. However, if the proportions are not roughly 50-50, then there is a question. So why? Why there is a particular group, gender group, which is less present in the university than the other group? And that's where we go into the step number 3. The step number 3 is the qualitative data and analysis. So we should see not only the gaps, but we need to understand why do we have them? What are the barriers which a particular gender group encounters in the given field? So what makes the people from a particular gender group, women, men, or other gender identity groups, not being present, not using a particular service at the same rates as other groups, at equal rates as the other groups? So that's where we identify the barriers. Then on the next level, or next step, we should do something with these barriers. We should plan measures and implement these measures to remove these specific barriers. Very often, we cannot solve a problem just with micro measures, just with measures in a specific area, a field, because some of the problems are very deeply rooted and are very systemic. So basically, they are so deeply built into the whole of society, how the society functions, structure of the society, that without the addressing of these macro barriers, it's difficult to resolve a problem. So just let me give you an example. So imagine we have, not imagine, but that's the real situation. The representation of women in quite a number of employment fields is disproportionate. So basically in some sectors of economy, women are more present than men, and vice versa. In some other areas, there are present more men than women. Very simple example, if we go into the healthcare or childcare, there are more women in these areas than men working, employed. And such areas like, heavy industries, engineering industries, politics, you'll find more men than women in these positions. So if we're speaking about planning some measures at the micro level, it's like going to a particular enterprise, particular company, which has less women than men, and trying to work with this enterprise. And we can achieve some of the results with this enterprise. However, if we want to achieve a truly transformative change, we actually need to work with the stereotypes which exist in the society, because all of these people who come to the enterprise and discriminate women are ultimately coming from the society. They're not coming from the skies. They're not coming from the space, outer space. These are members of the society. So people get all of these old stereotypes because they've heard about them in kindergarten, in the school, in the family, and so on and so forth. So we can change the minds of some people on the enterprise, but if we want a really sustainable change, a change which lasts long and actually becomes a new norm, we need to change these stereotypes which come from kindergarten, school, family, mass media, internet, and so on and so forth. So that's the step number 5 in this gender analysis, practical steps of gender mainstreaming and applying gender analysis. Okay, if you have questions so far, please put your question, because now we are going into the gender-based analysis plus. So this more sophisticated and more complex approach. Okay, so if there are no questions or comments, let me start with this first slide about gender-based analysis plus. Gender-based analysis plus is the analysis of a specific document, action, or practice in a disaggregated manner, the same like in gender-based analysis, but not by one single ground, gender, but by many grounds. So gender analysis plus is an analysis in a disaggregated manner by gender, plus age, race, disability, minority status, indigenous status, and many, many other grounds. So basically, the idea behind gender analysis, gender plus analysis, sorry, is to look at the people not just as people. Yes, it does. The GBA plus does include all other grounds which potentially might discriminate people, including the LGBTIQ plus grounds. Yes. It also includes such grounds like rural or urban, poor, non-poor, people with people who live with HIV and people who do not live with HIV. So all the grounds which potentially could lead to discrimination. So basically what we do with this analysis, we do not analyze a policy or a document just from the perspective of women, men, and people with other gender identities. But we're analyzing the document starting from the fact that people are different on other grounds as well, are diverse on other grounds as well. So the starting point for the gender-based analysis plus, or for this plus, which is added to the GBA, is the fact that all of us, all people, have multiple identities. And these multiple identities, they intersect, they interact with each other. So which are these multiple identities? Gender is one of those identities. So when we ask ourselves a very simple questions, who am I? Yeah, so when there is a chance to make a longer training, that's an exercise which I am using to do with the participants. So I'm asking the participants to take a piece of paper and put on this piece of paper 10 propositions, each of which should start with the I am. And people write down how they identify themselves, how they see themselves. And many people identify themselves through gender lens. So actually putting, writing down like I am a woman, I am a man, somebody is writing other gender identities. But that's just one of 10 identities on this list. People also identify themselves on some other grounds. So people are identifying them like I'm a parent, I'm a mother, I'm a father, I'm a son, I'm a daughter, or identifying themselves by some ethnic criteria, saying, you know, I'm an English, or I am a Russian, I am an Italian, I am a Vietnamese. So that's another type of the identity. Or people can identify themselves on religious grounds. Yeah, I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Buddhist. On some philosophical grounds, I'm a Confucianist, or followers of the Confucius. So basically, people identify themselves on many different grounds. I just wrote most common, so to say, grounds. All these identities and characteristics, they are equally important in people's lives. It is very difficult in many people's. So if you ask someone, so what your identity is more important? Is it for you more important to be a woman or a Christian? Many people find it difficult, you know, to say that, you know, many people find it difficult to say that, no, I'm in the first place, I am a woman, and in Christian, I am on the second place. No, for many people, all of these identities are as important. So they are of the same importance for the life of the people. So all these identities, which exist in every one of us, they intersect and interact with each other. So for example, just to give you an example, to think of, so when somebody is thinking of herself as a Christian woman, it's not the same as if this lady was an atheist woman, or a Muslim woman, or a Muslim man. So this combination of all these factors, it produces a very complex human personality. So when people think of themselves, when all of these factors and characteristics come together, this creates a very complex understanding and self-perception in people. And the next important factor, not only these multiple identities or multiple characteristics create a complex human personality when we think of ourselves. All the things around us, when they interact with us, with our bodies and our personalities, they take into account all of these multiple factors. So not only things interact differently with women, men, and people of other gender identities, they also interact with people differently depending on their religion, on the language they speak, on their age, on the area where they come from, on whether they live with HIV or do not live with HIV, whether they are or they are not persons with disabilities, and so on and so forth. So basically, all of these things which exist around us, they interact differently with us, not just because we are different in terms of the gender identity, but also because of different other factors. So when we speak about disabled people or people with disabilities, So you know that basically the main problem with the way how the societies function is not that the people have some health issues, but the problem is that the society does not accommodate people with their specificities. Each of us has a specific bodily feature or specific health feature. I mean, I don't think there is a person who can say that she or he is 100% free of a particularity. So you see, you've seen my face. I'm wearing eyeglasses. So if I don't wear eyeglasses, I'm lost in the society. I'm lost on the streets. And many people actually have this type of the particularities. These are not deficiencies. These are particularities of ourselves. And the society should take care that all of our particularities are accommodated, are taken care of. So things around us interact with us differently because we are different, we are diverse, because we are diverse on many grounds. And that's what the GBA plus analysis tries to accomplish. Let's look at a specific example how two of the grounds could interact. So when we speak about the gender inequalities, we should understand very clearly that even within the women, the group of women, people who identify themselves as women, not all of the women are disadvantaged and discriminated the same way. Some women, some subgroups of women are disadvantaged and discriminated more than the other groups. And let's take the example of women with disabilities. Women with disabilities are usually more disadvantaged and discriminated than women without disabilities. But also women with disabilities are more disadvantaged and discriminated than men with disabilities. So even within the group of women, women with disabilities are more disadvantaged and discriminated than the other women. And within the group of persons with disabilities, women are usually more disadvantaged and discriminated than men with disabilities. So this is an example of how a person which has two characteristics, vulnerable characteristics, being a woman and being a person with disability, these two characteristics come together and produce an amplified form of discrimination and disadvantage. So women with disabilities, in a way, face double or multiple disadvantage and discrimination. And what gender-based analysis plus tries to achieve, it tries to see not only women, men, and people with other gender identities, but it also tries to see the diversity among the women, among the men, and among the persons with other gender identities. So gender-based analysis plus is a more complex analysis because it considers in the analysis not just the ground of gender identity, but also other grounds. So when we'll, yes.
We have some the questions in the chat box, and also I would like to clarify some comments here. Yeah, there's a question from Mr. Cao Thanh Phong. Chị Huyền Đỗ, chị có thể giải thích rõ hơn cho mọi người được cái statement đằng sau được không ạ? Tức là ý là chúng ta không nên sử dụng cái từ là người bình thường cái gì ạ?
Okay. So I'll answer on question about Mr. A, who is a nice guy. He's no. So basically, multiple identities. It's not that much about that people behave differently in different situations, but it's about how people see themselves, so that they see themselves as people with many characteristics. So that's what multiple identity means. So basically, people do not identify themselves just as women, men, or people with other gender identities, but they also identify themselves as I am a man, I'm a husband, I'm middle age, I speak English or Vietnamese, I'm of Chinese origin or whatever. So all of these characteristics together, they create this multiplicity. So these are these many factors which construct the identity of a person. These identities could have some relation on how the person position himself or herself in different settings. So, for example, if a senior man, a senior age man, lives in a traditional society, this senior age men who were educated in this old traditional views about the world may think that then when they come to work, they should behave like the main guys, like the the leaders, the dominant figures. So there is a relation between, in this case, between the fact that a person perceives himself as a man and a senior age man, but it's not a direct link. He thinks of himself in these terms not because it's written in his DNA, in his cells, body cells, but because the social structure, the social stereotypes led him to believe that he should behave this way. So it's basically a socially constructed perception of the way how the man, such a man, behaves in the society. So this problem is created not because it's a biological trait, not because it's written in the DNA, but because the society somehow historically assigned this type of the behavior to senior age men. So identities do have some relation with the ways how the people behave, but it's not a direct link. It's a link. So it's a link through the social environment, which constructs this type of the behaviors. Did I answer this question about the Mr. A?
Vâng, anh Ca Thanh Phong. Okay.
Okay.
Vâng, chị Huyền Đỗ có thể hỗ trợ xem nói rõ cái statement vừa rồi không ạ? Vâng.
Yes, in the presentation, you mentioned about the women with disability. It is good, but I just mentioned about the translation in Vietnamese. Yeah, when we use the term women with disability or in general like disabilities. So what is disabilities? Yeah, it's the same when we mention about gender equality. So for disability, like you mentioned that everyone like is not perfect. So yeah, we have different kinds of impairments. So for example, for women, for person with disability, they have some kinds of impairment related to, for example, physically or visually or hearing impairment, such as, and when this impairment faced with different kinds of barrier,
exactly.
It causes disability. So person with disability is not because of themselves. When
exactly.
they are
it's because of the society, which is not accommodated
with barrier like a social environment or social behavior, something like that. So they become person with disability. So when we talk about disability or person with disability, we should not compare person with disability and other like a normal person. Yeah. So just the term.
Yes, exactly.
Use that.
Yeah. So again, I just don't know how it translates into into Vietnamese. But in English, for example, the term handicapped is not a good term to be used with regard to people with disabilities. The two terms which are usually used in English is either disabled persons or persons with disabilities. And this term means exactly what you just said. Yeah. So basically what we've just discussed so far, these problems with all of these groups which we mentioned, or the problems which these groups face are the problems which are created by the society. So these are the barriers which the society created historically for women, for persons with disabilities, for aged people, for people with some minority, ethnic minorities, or linguistic minorities, or religious minorities. And these barriers are the creation of the society. So basically, what human rights-based approach, we will speak about this a bit later, talks about exactly this. So human rights-based approach is not about basically having one type of a person which needs to be kind of improved. Human rights-based approach is about seeing people with all the particularities which they have and adjusting the society to the people, and not vice versa, not the people to the society, not making everyone uniform so that it is easier for the for the society to build or to do something, but vice versa, to actually the society should create all types of accommodations for all types of particularities which exist in people, so that everyone with his or her kind of identity, with his or her body, feels okay in the society. So yeah, thank you for this comment, but that's a good comment which feeds into our discussion a bit later about human rights-based approach.
Okay, Slava, I'd like us among Vietnamese to discuss a little bit in Vietnamese to make sure that everyone understand. Chị Huyền Đỗ ạ, vâng, chị có thể state lại cái câu chuyện đó, vì thực ra chúng ta cần phải có cùng một ngôn ngữ với người Việt Nam với nhau ấy. Tức là cái việc mà như chị nói, tức là ở đây chúng ta đang dùng cái từ mà người khuyết tật, đấy là nó không đúng không ạ? Hay là chúng ta không nên so sánh như nào ạ? Tức từ góc độ về mặt ngôn ngữ ở tiếng Việt ấy, thì chúng tôi dùng nó đúng hơn cái câu chuyện đó. Tức là vậy thì là tiếng
có thể dịch ngôn ngữ đúng không ạ? Sorry, Slava, for a little bit. We talk in Vietnamese, maybe it's easier for us. Okay.
Yes, no problem. Please discuss in Vietnamese.
Tất cả các sự kiện trước đây cần thế rồi.
Because we just need to make sure that everyone follows the kind of presentation is on the same page. So if you need to discuss Vietnamese, feel free. Just let me know if you have further questions. Yes.
Vâng, không mọi lần toàn thế đấy chị ạ. Tức là thực ra mình muốn để thực sự mọi người Việt Nam ấy phải
hiểu,
cho nên mình không phải là câu chuyện đúng không ạ, mà mọi người phải hiểu thực sự cái bản chất vấn đề, chứ không phải là chỉ để nghe xong rồi lại đi về thì không thực sự tốt lắm.
Thực ra là ví dụ như là mình hay thấy truyền thông này hay đưa về ví dụ như vấn đề người khuyết tật hoặc nói về những người khuyết tật, họ thì sẽ theo hai hướng. Một là họ là những kiểu như là những người rất là phi thường, họ vượt qua được những cái trở ngại của bản thân là khuyết tật và họ làm được những điều rất là phi thường. Đấy là trường hợp thứ nhất. Trường hợp thứ hai là họ lại ở cái khía cạnh là đối diện ngược lại, tức là họ rất là đau khổ, họ cần sự trợ giúp của xã hội, rồi thì cần về hỗ trợ, rồi thì họ nghèo khổ thế nọ thế kia. Đấy, tức là thường là sẽ theo hai hướng như thế. Ví dụ các anh chị mà để ý trên báo chí. Thế cho nên là khi nói về người khuyết tật nói chung ấy, thì mọi người sẽ dùng những cái từ ví dụ như anh đấy làm được những điều rất là phi thường này, hoặc là anh đấy không như những người bình thường khác. Bản thân tôi là người khuyết tật và ví dụ như tôi rất hay từ chối báo chí viết về mình, mặc dù là mình cũng đi học thạc sĩ ở Mỹ hoặc đi Úc đi đâu ấy. Mọi người rất muốn viết và mọi người dùng cái từ ví dụ như là chị làm được những điều rất phi thường và chị không như những người bình thường khác. Không, tôi cũng bình thường, tôi cũng như tất cả mọi người, tôi không có cái gì cả. Tôi chỉ có một cái khiếm khuyết, ví dụ như bản thân tôi chẳng hạn, một chân nó ngắn hơn chân kia. Thế thôi thì tôi vẫn đi bộ, vẫn leo núi, vẫn làm được những điều như tất cả mọi người. Chỉ có điều tôi có một cái khiếm khuyết nhỏ. Đấy, hoặc là các anh chị nhìn thấy người điếc chẳng hạn, đúng không? Họ chỉ là không nghe nói được thôi, chứ họ cũng như tất cả những người bình thường khác. Đấy, cho nên khi mà mình hay dùng cái từ là người bình thường, thế có nghĩa là chúng tôi là người bất thường. Ví dụ đấy là một nhóm. Thế cho nên là khi mà mọi người sử dụng ví dụ chị cũng như bao phụ nữ khuyết tật khác chẳng hạn, hoặc là như bao người phụ nữ khác thì ok. Nhưng mà mọi người lại hay dùng ví dụ như không như những người phụ nữ bình thường khác, chị thế nọ thế kia. Đấy, hoặc là người khuyết tật này không như đấy, cái ngôn ngữ của mình khi mình dùng so sánh thì là vấn đề ngôn ngữ. Còn vấn đề thứ hai thì như anh Slava nói thì thực ra đấy là cái định kiến đối với người khuyết tật. Đấy thì định kiến mọi người hay những người khuyết tật sẽ phải có một cái gì đấy và nó không hoàn hảo. Nhưng mà có một câu chuyện rất là vui là ví dụ như một hôm tôi đi vào một cái hội thảo gì đấy của bên Bắc.com và đến cổng các anh bảo vệ nghĩ là tại vì mình mang máy tính đi họp cho nên các anh nghĩ là mình vào mình bán đồ văn phòng phẩm gì đấy, họ không cho vào và mình chìa cái tờ giấy ra thì mọi người lại thay đổi luôn thái độ. Thế cho nên là mọi người hay định kiến đối với người khuyết tật là như thế. Thế cho nên là chính là cái barrier, tức là cái định kiến xã hội cũng như cái môi trường mà ví dụ như không có người phiên dịch ngôn ngữ ký hiệu chẳng hạn thì các anh chị điếc lúc đấy trở thành người không thể giao tiếp được, cũng như là mình không có ngoại ngữ thì mình cũng giống như là mình không biết tiếng Anh, đúng không ạ? Thì các anh chị không biết ngôn ngữ ký hiệu, cũng như người mù họ không có cái chữ nổi chẳng hạn. Thì đấy là những cái rào cản về mặt, ví dụ về mặt ngôn ngữ này, về mặt môi trường này, về mặt định kiến, tức là cái của mình thì nó sẽ tạo ra cái vấn đề khuyết tật. Cho nên là trong cái lĩnh vực khuyết tật ấy, thì cái định nghĩa ví dụ như Việt Nam có 6 triệu người khuyết tật nó cũng hơi khác với định nghĩa của ví dụ Đan Mạch về người khuyết tật. Tại sao ở Đan Mạch ví dụ người khuyết tật họ ít hơn? Vì những cái rào cản xã hội khác họ không gặp phải nhiều như người khuyết tật ở Việt Nam. Đấy, tức là những cái định nghĩa hoặc những cái nó sẽ ảnh hưởng đến ạ. Và xin phép là ngắn gọn không sợ chiếm thời gian.
Vâng,
không biết
rất là
anh
tuyệt
chị
vời đấy
có
ạ.
hỏi gì không ạ?
Vâng, rất tuyệt vời bởi vì thực ra là nó là một cái nơi để chúng ta educate nhau, educate nhau về những cái khái niệm này. Mặc dù tôi cũng có làm việc với lại nhóm các doanh nghiệp xã hội mà sử dụng người điếc ấy, thì ngay cả khi mỗi lần tôi viết ở trên post một cái gì đó mà tôi nói là nhóm người điếc chẳng hạn, thì tất cả các bạn của tôi đều vào inbox riêng và correct rằng là Thắng ơi, hãy viết là người khiếm thính đi. Không, các bạn ấy, tôi làm việc với các bạn rất nhiều và các bạn ấy bảo là phải dùng người điếc chứ không được dùng người khiếm thính. Nhưng mà thực ra thì mọi người lại nghĩ là như vậy. thì chúng ta có lẽ đây là một cái câu chuyện mà chúng ta phải educate nhau rất là nhiều. Vì bản thân tôi và cộng sự của tôi thì phần lớn là cái background là về kinh doanh và kinh tế, nên là những vấn đề về xã hội đối với chúng tôi là những cái mà thực sự là rất là mới. Ok, cảm ơn các anh chị.
Cho phép em cũng tham luận một xíu được không ạ? Thì cái này ngay từ ban đầu là chính em cũng mới mắc phải cái lỗi đó. Khi mà em giới thiệu thì em dùng từ handicap thay vì từ disability, tại vì em sợ mọi người ở đây không quen với cái từ disability lắm. Nhưng mà em thấy là ở đây toàn là high range không, và rõ ràng là hiểu rất rõ cái từ đó. Thế thì em suy nghĩ rất nhiều về cái vấn đề mà chị Huyền Đỗ tham luận ở đây. Nó khá rõ ràng và em đồng ý với cái ý chị, nhưng mà ý chị nó rất là sâu. Thế thì em phân vân nhất là khi mà mình educate hay là nếu như mà nói dân dã đôi khi là bắt bẻ cách người ta dùng từ. Xin lỗi chị, em không muốn nói chị, nhưng mà ý như vậy thì cái cách nó rất là khó. Tại vì lúc nãy em thấy cái từ mà people with disability, women with disability, nó ít nhất nó cũng là một cái term phổ biến ở trong bên lĩnh vực của em vẫn dùng như vậy. Thì nếu như mà phân tích sâu như chị thì hoàn toàn không sai, nhưng mà nếu như ở mức độ mà dân thường hoặc là hơn một xíu thì em thấy từ đó nó vẫn còn có thể chấp nhận được. Thế thì đó là cái rất là khó khi mà chúng ta biết là tới mức nào thì nó có thể nâng dân trí dần tới mức nào để có thể chấp nhận được. Rồi cái thành ra em nghe chị Huyền Đỗ thì em hoàn toàn đồng ý, nhưng mà em thấy là khó. Rồi cái thứ hai nữa là em vẫn bất ngờ là khi chị vẫn liên tục dùng từ điếc với lại mù hay là gì đó. Thế thì,
đấy như chị Thắng nói
bên em thì bây giờ em là tuyệt đối em chỉ dùng từ là khiếm thị, khiếm thính thôi, chứ không bao giờ dùng từ điếc hoặc mù nữa. Đó.
Không, đấy đúng là như chị Thắng nói, tức là bản thân các bạn ấy sẽ dùng ví dụ như điếc thì sẽ có cộng đồng điếc, ví dụ như không thể nghe, không thể nói được. Nhưng mà nếu mà nói khiếm thính thì ví dụ như giảm thính lực, hoặc là mù cũng thế, mù hẳn, hoặc là low vision thì là nhìn kém. Nhưng mà nếu mà dùng đúng như trong cái định nghĩa khuyết tật, người ta sẽ dùng là khuyết tật nghe nói, khuyết tật nhìn, thế để tránh được cái việc mà phân biệt đối xử. Tôi có khuyết tật mà nhìn, hoặc anh chị đấy. Thế thôi, xin lỗi mọi người hơi nhiều.
Vâng, vì ở trong đây chúng ta cũng có recommend mọi người là để cho giảng viên tiếp tục, và có lẽ là Khéo lại phải nhờ chúng ta lại phải tự tổ chức với nhau một cái sự kiện riêng về people disabilities để nâng cao ý thức, và đến cả chúng ta là những người làm về mảng về xã hội mà chúng ta còn chưa rõ cả những cái khái niệm này, đúng không ạ? Còn dùng nó chưa chuẩn chẳng hạn, thì chắc là lại phải mở ra diễn đàn nữa. Thank you. We're discussing about just the use of terms and deaf people or people with hearing disabilities or something. Okay, please continue.
Okay, so basically, when we look into the definition of gender-based analysis plus, the official definition from the Canadian government. So Canada is one of the countries in the world which does apply gender-based analysis plus both in international assistance, and this particular project which made possible my participation in this training is funded by the Canadian government, which funds it on the basis of the gender-based analysis plus approach. So Canada applies GBA plus both in international assistance and national in the national federal policies and approaches, programs. So the definition which Canada uses with regard to GBA plus approach is the following one. So GBA plus, gender-based analysis plus, is an analytical tool used to assess the potential impacts of policies, programs, services, and other initiatives on diverse groups of women, men, and people with other gender identities. The plus highlights that this type of analysis goes beyond gender, sorry, and includes the examination of a range of other intersecting identity factors, such as age, sexual orientation, disability, education, language, geography, culture, and income. So that's exactly what we have just discussed on the previous slides. So gender-based analysis plus is an analysis, a tool, to analyze how policies, programs, things, designs, everything interacts and will impact various groups of women, men, and people with other gender identities. And when we say add this plus, we mean analyzing not just women, men, and people with other identities, but analyzing in an intersecting cross manner women from various age groups, men from various age groups, people of other identities, gender identities from various age groups, women with disabilities and without disabilities and with different types of disabilities, men with and without and different types of disabilities, people with other gender identities with and without disabilities and different types of disabilities, women and men speaking different languages, women, men professing different religions, and so on and so far. So instead of analyzing a policy or a program along just 3 groups or 4 groups, which are connected to the gender identities, this analysis requires an analysis of many subgroups. It could be 10, 15, or even 20. So that's why this approach is a much more complex approach and much more efforts demanding approach. It requires quite a lot of time, quite a lot of analysis, and quite a lot of skills to do such type of the analysis. So when we go a little bit further into some elements of this tool or approach, so Justice Canada unpacks the definition of gender-based analysis plus with some clarifications, which are called guiding principles. So these principles are as follows. 1, GBA plus is an integrated and systemic approach. So GBA plus should be conducted routinely, meaning like every day, through key stages of the development of a new initiative, from planning through to evaluation, along with the analysis of other key considerations. And here, this definition clarifies that basically every department of the Canadian government should do it. So, meaning that, what does this idea, integrated and systemic approach, means in simple words? It means that it should be part of our everyday life. It shouldn't be just a one-off exercise. It shouldn't be just, once a year we on a special occasion we sit and apply this GBA plus tool. No, it should be part of the everyday activity of everyone, of every institution, and of every stage. So whenever we start thinking of a particular problem, of a particular activity which we want to undertake, we should apply gender-based analysis plus. Second principle is that it should be evidence-based. GBA plus should be evidence-based, relying on reputable statistics, data, and research. When presenting multiple options for a cabinet, for the government, document, or other purposes, GBA plus considerations should be factored into each of the options going forward. So what this proposition in simple words says? First of all, it should rely on data. So it should be based on the data. We've talked on the previous slides about disaggregated data. So we should see how now different groups of women, men, people with other gender identities are faring now, how they're doing now, what type of the subgroups or groups of women, men lag behind. So if we look on the rates of employment, or rates of education, or rates of using healthcare services, or representation in parliament, which groups and subgroups are not present well, are not participating in equal, proportional numbers in all of these activities. And we should use this data to work towards the solutions. So once we find this data, we should develop the solutions, and these solutions should be based on the disaggregated data. So that's what this principle says. And principle number 3, the GBA plus should, we should recognize evolution of societal norms. GBA plus analysis requires that assumption that may affect policy be challenged. So I'll explain this. It is important to recognize that societal norms are constantly evolving and require a consistent re-questioning of assumptions. Incorrect assumptions can lead to unintended impacts for diverse groups of people. So this paragraph says that we need to constantly ask ourselves why a particular rule, a particular principle exists. Does it respond to our actual reality? So, for example, so if we ask someone why women, like in Vietnam, why women take care of children more often than men. So the people most probably, again, I'm not a great specialist on the history of Vietnam or the social norms of Vietnam, but I assume that the response most probably will be something like, well, because women historically were taking care of kids, and because women are better at dealing with kids than men. This could be probably the 2 examples which you will get. Now we need to ask a question. So why is that? So if we think that this is this should be the case in the future, challenging this assumption is to ask, but why do we think that women take care of kids better than men? And then we will, when we will analyze why we think this way, we will actually discover that this is a social construct. This is a way how the society functioned in the past. This is the way how the society found the solution. But the way how the society functioned in the past is not necessarily how the society should function now in the present, or how it should function in the future. You know, our societies, the human societies, pass through many different stages in their development. In the past, human societies had slaves. Slavery was an approved part of the society life, at least in the West, in Western societies. But this doesn't mean that slavery should exist now. Or in a distant past, people ate each other. They were cannibals, eating each other. But this does not mean that we should continue eating each other now. So all of these societal norms or assumptions which come from the past, we should challenge them. We should constantly ask ourselves a question: in our present society, in our modern society, or in the society of the future, do we have to have the same type of norms, or we should change the things? So that's what this paragraph is about. It basically invites all of us to constantly ask ourselves, but why? Why we should have it the way how we had it centuries ago, or millennia ago. Okay, next slide. There is, in Canada, there is a separate department. It's not a ministry, but almost like a ministry, which is called Canadian Department for Women and Gender Equality. And this is another institution in Canada which deals with the issues of gender equality. So this institution also has some clarifications with regard to GBA plus, to the gender-based analysis plus. So the clarification number one, the GBA plus can be applied anywhere. It is relevant to every organization's activities and to any policy, program, and operational environment, including such areas as research, policy, program, design, service delivery, operations, legal service, communications, evaluation, and monitoring. So again, this clarification is that GBA is for everyone, for every single institution, organization, and for each of us. So each of us can apply GBA in his or her life. Clarification number two, applying GBA plus to policy development is important because women, men, and non-binary people can experience the same issue differently or experience differential impacts of the facially neutral policy or program. So therefore, issue analysis and proposed solutions shall be provided with these differences in mind. So basically, that's the restatement of what we've discussed a bit earlier. Because we are different, because we have many different features and characteristics in each of us, in each of our identities, applying GBA plus means that the activities of every organization, institution should analyze potential impacts, potential effects on different groups of people. So these policies should not treat people as one homogeneous mass of people, like everyone is the same, but vice versa. That GBA plus requires that these policies, which are facially neutral, which seem to be for everyone, actually are analyzed in a disaggregated manner, in a broken down manner by all these various subgroups of people. And the next clarification, Canadian GBA plus requires that the following questions be necessarily asked. So we should ask ourselves the following questions. Have the stakeholders been consulted? Do they represent a diversity of perspectives? And have impacted communities been consulted? So what does this mean? This means a very simple thing. So as we've discussed in the previous paragraphs, we need to understand how a particular policy, a particular document, a particular object will interact with different groups of people. But here I have an interesting question for you. If I'm a man, a white man of middle ages, speaking English from Canada, how am I supposed to know the situation of Vietnamese women living in Vietnam, speaking Vietnamese language? Of course, I can read some of the books, some of the sources, but all these books and sources cannot replace the experience of the Vietnamese women themselves. So the main source of information about the situation of the Vietnamese women, or the main source of information how a particular document or policy will impact, will interact with Vietnamese women are the women themselves, are the Vietnamese women themselves. So that is why when we develop all of these policies and documents, we should always have the relevant subgroups of people, groups and subgroups of people present, engaged in the process of developing products, services, documents, policies, and so on and so far. So that's this point number 3, which is what it speaks about. Okay, I think we've got already 5 questions on the chat box.
Yes, yes. We have
Let me
from
look here.
Mr. K. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Okay. With the military, I will give you an interesting case from Canada. Yeah, of course. I mean, when we speak about the drugs should be prescribed for the people who need them. That's clear. It's not for everyone. Okay. How do we achieve the... Okay. The ultimate goal, which is to make the site able needs. They are social things are constantly changing for everyone. Very what it is. Can you explain more non-binary people? Do they identify? Yeah. Okay. Okay, let me start with the simplest one. So the difference, who are the non-binary people? We've discussed a little bit on the first training. So basically there is in English at least, I do not know whether in Vietnamese, but in English there is a difference between 2 words, sex and gender. So sex is about the biological side of us. It's basically which biological characteristics we have. So what is our body? What sexual traits our body carries. And here people, the bodies of the people could be described as feminine bodies, masculine bodies, and there are some situations when people are born with both male and female organs in their body. But this is the sex. This is what our body is. Now, people can feel themselves, can perceive themselves, not necessarily what their body is. So I can have a body of a man, but I can perceive myself, I can feel myself as a woman. So gender is about our self-perception. Our gender identity is about our self-perception, how we perceive ourselves, or how the society perceives us. So the society could also perceive us as men, women, and other gender identities. Now, there are people in the world which do not perceive themselves, do not identify themselves with being a woman or a man. So people just feel themselves something else, not as a woman, not as a man, but something else. And there are different ways how the people describe this something else. So these people who do not identify themselves with a particular gender, with these 2 gender identities, man or woman, they are the non-binary people. Non-binary, it's from the word binary. Binary, it's dividing something in 2 parts, in 2 classes. So binary means that you can be either a woman or a man. That's a binary approach. Non-binary, it's when you are recognizing that people should not necessarily be either women or men. They could be something else. So this is non-binary gender identity. And on the top of that, there are some people who actually do not identify themselves at all with any gender, so they don't feel themselves something else, but they just refuse to attribute themselves any gender. So these people are called agender, kind of non-gender. So that's an explanation of who the non-binary people are. Okay. Non-binary, well, if there, so when we spoke about gender equality, we mentioned that gender equality, among other things, provides that there is no a single standard of being a woman. So basically, there are various types of femininities or masculinities. So basically, when a woman identified herself as a woman because of certain reasons, and there is another woman which thinks of herself as a woman for the other reasons, they both self-identify themselves as women. They just have a different perception of what a woman should be, but they both identify themselves as women. So non-binary people is not about variance of femininities and masculinities. It's about not identifying yourself as a woman or as a man. So that's on femininities and masculinities. And now somebody asked earlier about the requirements. So the question was something like, people are different, but what if some professions require particular characteristics of a person? Here we need to be very attentive. So in Canada, when there is a case of discrimination in employment brought in front of a court. So for example, a woman comes and says, look, I was not employed in a particular job because I am a woman. The court uses such an expression as bona fide occupational requirement, which means that the court actually asks the employer why the employer requires particular characteristic or particular qualification for a particular position. And if this is position really is a bona fide means in good faith, basically if this requirement is really related to the job, then the employer can ask this requirement, can ask this from the potential employee. But here there is a very important point which we need to remember, that an employer can never ever say, well, except for there is one exception, but in absolute majority of cases can never say that I need a woman for a particular profession or for a particular job, or I need a man. So all these requirements should be stipulated in a very technical means. So for example, I need a person who can lift a load of 25 kilograms on the job. And in this case, the court will check whether this job indeed requires 25 kilograms, or this is used just to eliminate women from the competition, because some employers try to manipulate with these requirements. So I'll give you an example. In Moldova, sometimes there were very often announcements, something like that. So we need a lawyer with a driving license to drive the car for a position. And apparently it looks like a very neutral kind of requirement. But when you look more attentively, basically what happens, this company which hires these lawyers, they don't want to hire women, they want to hire men. But according to the law, they cannot write that we hire only lawyers men. So what they do, they just add this extra requirement that you need to have a driving license. And in Moldova, of course, there are many more men who have driving licenses than women. So there are still quite few women which have driving license. So these employers, by introducing this requirement, basically they manipulate, they try to eliminate women. So what a court should ask in this situation in Moldova, it should ask, so why do you need actually a driving license for a lawyer? Are you hiring a lawyer or a driver? Because if you're hiring a lawyer, you can only ask legal qualifications. If you need someone, if you need the driving, you need just to hire a driver and not put together all these two characteristics. Or you just need to say that we are hiring a lawyer who will be able to travel, I know, abroad or travel in the other city. How this lawyer will reach the other city? By bus, by an own car? That's a different question. You should not assume that your lawyers should drive in a private car. So that's how this occupational requirements test works. You really need to challenge why specific requirements are put into the occupation. So when we come back to these soldiers, which you brought, somebody brought as an example, you can put some requirements with regard to the soldiers, like you have to be able to wear an anti-gas mask and run in this anti-gas mask, 5 kilometers, or you have to, be able to lift a load of 20 kilograms if you need this according to your military service. But you cannot a priori assume that only men can do this. Some women can also do this. So you should not basically eliminate women from these jobs. Or with regard to people with disabilities, I mean, there are many jobs where you only need a specific ability for just a small part of the job or just for one function in the job. But there are many situations when people with disabilities are not employed because the employers have a stereotype. So for example, okay, let's take a plant which requires some operation with the hands. So people work with their hands on a plant, on a factory. And many employers are just not employing people with disabilities without the hands because, we're a plant where the people work with the hand. But my question would be in this situation, are all the jobs actually require work with the hand in your plant? You probably have many jobs which don't require this. You probably have accountants who don't need necessarily to have both hands. Or you probably have some jobs which do not need hands at all, So you cannot a priori eliminate some people just because you have a stereotype that a job could be done or the most of the jobs on your plant could be done just people of specific type. You should only stipulate in this requirement that we need people for this particular job, for this particular production line, who can operate with both of their hands a particular device. But you cannot say that our enterprise does not hire people with disabilities. That's a wrong approach. That's a contrary approach, contrary to the entire human rights-based approach and gender-based plus approach. And let me give you one example from Canada. In Canada, there was an interesting case. There was a fire team, fire squad, in one of the provinces in Canada. So the fire persons in this team were both women and men. This fire department, introduced new physical tests for the members of the team. And there was a special test, aerobic test. So you had to run with a specific distance, with a specific time, within a specific time. So if you fail to run with this time, you are not fit for this team. And this test was applied, and many women did not pass this test. So they were fired from this department. These women complained to the court and said that, look, the test was designed mainly to leave men in the jobs. And the court actually agreed with these women. The court asked the employer, so look guys, I mean, are all the jobs in your fire department require people to run with this speed? yes, of course, there are some people in the fire car which need to be, you know, on the front edge of the fire, who need maybe to run fast. But the driver of the car, of the fire car, probably doesn't need to run, or a dispatcher at the you know, in a command center also doesn't need to run. There are many people who don't need to run actually. So why you are imposing this test on everyone in the fire department? And second, the court basically asked, so why we designed the jobs that too many people have to run. Maybe, you know, you can redesign the jobs in your fire department that only out of the 3 squad members, only 1 should be a fast man, and everyone else should not necessarily be a fast man. So that's kind of the type of the questions which the court posed. So in this situation, which with the soldiers who should do particular duties, does everyone really have to be fit, run fast, lift heavy weights? Or some jobs just don't require this? Then you don't need to ask these requirements. And then you can have also women or people with disabilities serving in the military, serving in the fire brigades, serving everywhere. You just need to review what you expect of the people. So I hope I answered that question. Okay. Okay, there are some discussions about the terminology. I cannot help with terminology in Vietnamese. Yeah, please discuss, yeah, in the chat box. I will in the meanwhile proceed with my presentation.
Excuse me, Slava, can I follow up on a little bit?
Yes.
Can I follow up on the question regarding the military? So
yes,
recently,
please.
I just read something in Vietnam. The military, it's not the military, but the training, I'm not sure, but they only take in 10 or 20%. It's a police academy or something, I can't remember, but they only take in 10% to 20% of the female applicants because there is a lack of the jobs that are suitable for female, just like you said, because we should review and see what jobs suitable for the females. And apparently the military does this, and they see that there are only certain types of jobs that are suitable for females, and they only take in 10 to 20% of the applicants. And the 80% they take in the men, because there are more jobs that are suitable for men according to them. So is this something that is inequality?
Yes, yes, it is an inequality. And I would suggest a very simple solution how to change the situation. The jobs should be created by teams composed in equal number by women and men, not the people who design these jobs, who develop these jobs. Shouldn't be just men. I just mentioned this in the previous slide, that, or actually on this slide, that both women and men should be present in developing jobs, in developing programs. So when you will have an equal number of men and women developing the jobs, and these men and women will be equally senior in this team, so not only senior men and non-senior women, but everybody should be with the comparable level of seniority in this team. So when you'll have these equal numbers, then you will probably discover that there are many more jobs in the army which could be suitable for women. So the jobs description should be redesigned, should be rewritten, and those requirements which are excessive, which are not necessary, they just should be changed. So that's the problem, in my view. I don't know in detail the situation, but in most cases, the problem is that men are designing the jobs for men. And when men are designing something, as we've discussed in many examples before, with the cars, with smartphones, with other things, when only men are designing something, they usually get something good mainly for men and not for women. So if you want to have something good for women, you also need to have women who design the jobs. Okay. Okay, I should proceed further with the presentation. So when we now this slide which you see on the screen is the same slide which I showed you earlier, the practical steps of gender analysis. So just to remind, it was gender disaggregated data which should be collected. The data should be analyzed to identify gender gaps. We should understand why these gender gaps, and we should find solutions which address specific barriers and which address structural and systemic problems. The gender plus analysis, it's a more complex analysis because you have extra elements here. So you have to gather not just gender disaggregated data, but you have to gather gender plus disaggregated data, meaning data about people by gender and age plus age. Gender plus disability, gender plus rural, urban, and so on and so far. So what does it mean to disaggregate data by gender plus age? It means to disaggregate, to collect data not about just women, men, and people with other gender identities, but also about girls, women of young age, women of middle age, women of senior age, disaggregated. Broken down data. Then you have to break down data on boys, men of young age, men of middle age, men of senior age. So instead of 2 columns, you have to have 8 columns. And in addition to that, if you can, you are able, you also have to collect data about the people with other gender identities. People with other non-binary people of young age, of middle age, and of senior age. So you have to have more disaggregated data, more detailed, broken down data. So that's step number 1 under GBA+. Then you have to analyze the data, again, to identify the gaps, but this time not just between women and men, but also you compare aged women with aged men, but also aged women with non-aged women. You see, you have many more criteria for comparison, not just men versus women. And the next 3 stages are similar to gender-based analysis class. So we have to understand why we have these with gaps, not just gender gaps, but gender plus gaps. Okay. And we have to develop measures which address these more complex barriers. So you'll see as the result of this analysis that barriers are much more complex and are much more diverse. Many more barriers you will identify which create problems for various subgroups of people. Okay. So if we would make a table, if we just had a gender-based analysis without the plus, the table would look like that. And also you can add the 4th column, people with other gender identities. So how many people enter university? Total among men, among women, among people with other gender identities. How many graduate university? So that's a simple table with just gender analysis. But gender plus analysis table, it will look like this. And many more columns on the right. I wrote here, etc., but actually it should be many more columns. So you have to identify how many women of young age, middle age, senior age, how many women with disabilities, without disabilities, how many men, middle, senior, young age, how many men with disabilities, without disabilities, rural women, rural men, urban women, urban men. So many more columns. So it's a more complex table. Okay. So before I step into the HRBA, this is basically what I want to tell you about GBA+. This is, of course, kind of an basic stuff, so it's not too many details, but these are the main ideas behind the GBA+. So looking at this table, because this table quite well describes how the analysis should look like, or the first stage of the analysis should look like. That's the first stage, identifying, gathering the data and identifying gender gaps. What questions do you have with regard to GBA plus? Okay, if there are no more questions, you can still put them in the chat box. In the meanwhile, I will briefly tell about human rights-based approach. Human rights-based approach is an even more complex approach than GBA plus, but the good news, it has many elements of GBA plus. So basically, we will not discuss similar elements. I will just mention them. But before that, I want to show you a video about human rights-based approach, and then we will discuss on the next slides what you will see on the video. So let me switch to this video. And okay, we can go. Okay, start share screen. Here is this screen. Okay. Do you see the video?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
But there's no voice, there's no sound.
No sound. Okay, just a second. I know how to change this. Just a second.
You have to click on the box at the bottom of the screen. They said that share sound. Okay.
One big and one small. The people on the small island love their home, but living there did have its difficulties. That's because most of the important facilities like the secondary school, hospital, health center, market, and local government office were located across the water. Getting there was often a challenge, especially for children, the elderly, pregnant women, and people with disabilities. Sometimes it could even be dangerous. One day, a representative from an international agency arrived and called the men in the community together in the community hall. He told them he had just the right solutions to their problems. The men nodded and said thank you, although it wasn't quite what they wanted. The people were patient, but a year later, the bridge had still not been built, and they continued to rely on the small risky boat for transport between the two islands. Just when the community was giving up hope, a representative from another agency came over from the big island and held a series of community meetings to better understand the community's needs, assets, and skills. She said to achieve lasting and equal development for all, active participation by all groups in the community was essential. She invited every member of the community to voice their needs and ideas. In the meetings, she talked about the community's rights to things like education, healthcare, and adequate standard of living, and their linkage to national laws, the Constitution, and globally agreed human rights standards. She shared research and information and conducted trainings with all the community groups to empower them with knowledge, skills, and confidence to claim the rights government was legally obliged to fulfill to the extent possible within available national resources. She worked with local government and community leaders to transform harmful social norms that hindered participation and leadership by all groups in the community, most especially young people, women, and people with disabilities. The woman listened and invited a group of villagers to come to the main island to discuss with government officials local solutions for the development of their island and the realization of their human rights. A plan of action was agreed with the cornerstone of the solutions being non-discrimination, equity, and inclusion, ensuring that all groups in the community were included and benefited from the plan. Solutions did not just include the new boat to travel between the islands. They also included making services available on the small island. Throughout the process, the agency and government officials demonstrated accountability by providing reports of the work done and budgets spent. Soon, everyone was enjoying their rights, with people from both islands able to trade, socialize, and collaborate with one another. Both islands prospered. But that wasn't the end of the story. Village leadership structures, local development projects, and government officials maintained a dialogue, continually finding new ways to improve the lives of local people. A human rights-based approach comprised of participation linked to rights, accountability, non-discrimination, empowerment, and transforming social norms offers the best chance for community-led, people-centered, and lasting development. For more information about the human rights-based approach and how to apply this approach in your work in your country, please contact SPC RRT or visit the RRT website at rrt.spc.int.
Okay, so I will return to my PowerPoint presentation. So I will try to now summarize what this PowerPoint presentation was about. Human rights-based approach, as I mentioned, is a more complex approach than GBA+. It emerged 20 years ago within the United Nations, and it has a lot of common ground with the human development approach and with the GBA+. And human rights-based approach is one of the foundational principles of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. Human rights-based approach is based on universally recognized international human rights standards. It establishes that every person is entitled to a certain minimum set of rights. And these rights guarantee a decent life and self-realization in life in various forms. And public authorities are actually obliged to deliver these fundamental human rights. So basically, this is a very important element of the human rights-based approach. Human rights-based approach says that the main thing which the government should do, the governments should create for the people opportunities for self-realization in their life. And this self-realization in their life could take different forms, what we've discussed a bit earlier. So basically, these opportunities to self-realize in their life are human rights. So the governments, the authorities, their first and main task is to create for the people opportunities to live a decent and interesting life. Okay. So if we go through the elements of the human rights-based approach, they could be summarized in 4 points. Number one, the main function of the authorities is realization of human rights, collectively and individually. So the first question which we need always to ask ourselves when we think about an action, a program, is not just how it will affect various groups, but also the question, is our activity, is our program, is our policy going to improve the human rights situation, going to improve someone's rights? So that's the question number one, which should be asked under human rights-based approach. Second question to be, or second point, progress should be measured in people and in their enjoyment of their human rights. What does it mean? When we now look in how the various public authorities, universities, institutions, and organizations measure their success. So if you ask yourself, so how our organization measures our success, you will notice that very often the success is measured, the progress is measured in such categories as how many activities we've organized, how many trainings we've organized, how many money we've spent, how many kilometers of roads were built, how many classrooms were renovated. Human rights-based approach actually says that we should measure all the things not in these buildings, kilometers, or activities. We should measure in people. We should measure on how many people got educated, how many people got healthy, how many people got a good salary. Not how many enterprises we've created, but how many people got a good salary. Not how many schools we've built, but how many people got a good education. So this is a key difference between human rights-based approach and other types of approaches. We measure the success, the progress in people, and the enjoyment of their human rights. Next element, the activities, the programs should focus on most vulnerable people. And this is a common element with gender-based analysis plus. So we should not only see how a particular policy program impacts on various groups of people, but we should actively try to improve the situation of the most vulnerable groups. In case of gender inequality, these are the women in most of the cases. These are the people, if we speak about the grounds, it's people with disabilities. It's minorities, ethnic, religious, linguistic minorities. It's senior age people and young people who are more discriminated in employment than middle-aged people, for example. So the focus should always be on vulnerable people. And in addition to that, not only these objectives should be pursued, but also human rights-based approach establishes that this should be done through a specific process. And this process should be transparent, participatory. It should establish accountability mechanisms, and it should be empowering for the people. So if we put it in a very simple way, the movement of people with disabilities has this principle: nothing about us without us. So nothing could be done for us, about us, without engaging us, without our participation. This is actually the principle which is applicable to all activities, not just people with disabilities, but all other activities. All of the activities which concern the specific vulnerable people should be done with the participation, engagement, inclusion of these people. If these activities are not done with the participation, inclusion, and engagement of these people, very possible that this activity will not give an efficient result, a good result. It will give a result which these people do not like. So this activity will ultimately prove to be inefficient. Okay, so these are the four kind of principles of the human rights-based approach. Now, before I proceed to the checkout questions, checkout questions is for you to kind of verify and understand whether this session was useful. Do you have questions with regard to these four key elements of the human rights-based approach?
No, it seems no. But only Vũ Ngọc Anh asking about the effectiveness, cost effectiveness.
Okay, let me check. Yeah, this question, I've seen there was this question earlier. Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, we can go back to the.
Yes, just a second. I'll just read the question. It's a long one. So here you mentioned about data, like most of groups, the cost effectiveness of data collection. Because I think the most of groups you analyze, the more data statistical meaning requires huge amount of resources. At the moment, I'm thinking about 2 channels, 25. Yes, based on research and reports, it's hard to cover all subgroups. Yeah, okay. Okay, that's a good question. Very good question on collection of data. So first, of course, you cannot break down the groups without any limit. So at some point, you will indeed face a problem that it's becoming too costly. It requires too much resources, too much money, and so on and so forth. So that is why you have to stop at some point. And at the current level of the development of the technologies and of the cases in the other countries, the kind of the most detailed level of disaggregation is a disaggregation by 2 criteria. So you basically, in most cases, disaggregate situation by gender plus one more criteria. Of course, ideally, it would have been better if you could identify gender plus 2-3 more criteria, but the maximum which could be done at this point is gender plus one more criteria. So gender plus disability, gender plus age, gender plus area, residence area, urban or rural area. So again, even this type of disaggregation, it requires resources, but this disaggregation, the investment of the resources in this type of data, it pays off. And here, let me give you a very simple example. So imagine in a hospital, you are measuring temperature from the patients, from the people who stay in your hospital. And you, as the chief doctor, you get an average data of the temperature in your hospital. And the average data shows that the medium temperature is 38 degrees. So that the patients on average have 38 degrees. And my question to you is, will you be able with such a data to prescribe good medication for all your patients in the hospital?
Now, Anh, you get the question?
Yeah, I mean, it's a rhetoric question, but maybe if somebody can respond. So if you, as a chief medical doctor in your hospital, have a data just about the medium temperature, average temperature in your hospital, will you be able to treat the people effectively in your hospital? Of course, no. Okay. And now, if you have data disaggregated, not disaggregated, but disaggregated by the rooms. So you have the temperature not by each specific patient, but by rooms. Like room number 1 has average temperature 37%, room number 2, 37 and 5. Most probably the answer will be the same, no. So you cannot treat the people if you operate with this data. So you can only treat the patients when you have a specific data on each particular patient and on each particular, and you know the reasons for the medical condition of each particular patient. The same is true for this disaggregation of data. The more you invest into the disaggregation of data, the more accurate and efficient will be your measures. You will develop measures which will reach not only to the majority, but which will reach also to some minorities, to the groups which are very often are just not considered, not included into the thinking. So the more disaggregated data you have, the more grounds of disaggregation you have, the more people will be covered efficiently by your work. So that's the answer. Now, how to collect this data? That's a good question. The best data, of course, are the data which are collected statistically meaningfully, as you mentioned in your question. So this could be the census data or the sociological surveys data, representative sociological surveys data. However, both exercises cost quite a lot of money, so you cannot always collect data like this, like often on many grounds. That is why what is recommended that you collect data through other means. So one of the possible means is to organize focus groups for specific vulnerable people. So you will not get fully representative data. You will not get kind of statistically fully accurate data. But if you know that a particular subgroup, like women with disabilities, face problems, and you more or less know which type of problems, then you can organize focus groups to understand which are the reasons, which are these multiple life experiences which women with disabilities face, which produce you this picture, which create barriers for these women. So focus groups are not costly, less costly than organizing surveys, sociological surveys or census, but it can give you a relatively good picture. Or what you can also do, you can also introduce some of the instruments of collecting data into the activity of the organizations. So whenever an institution provides services, you can ask this institution to distribute questionnaires among the beneficiaries of these institutions, just to identify who is using the services of this institution. And then you can collect data from schools, from hospitals, from many other institutions. So that's another means of collecting data. Or you can organize commission special reports. So, for example, the Ombuds Office in Moldova uses this type of approach, or the Canadian human rights institutions. They make the reports on specific problems, and that's how they collect some of the data on some specific groups, like on indigenous people, on refugees, on people with disabilities, and so on and so forth. So this is a brief answer to your question.
Okay, thank you, Slava. But I'm thinking about like because people are using like media, for example, or internet channel to collect the data. So maybe it will be a bias for vulnerable group who don't really have access to the internet or like mobile devices. Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, you're right. Yeah. So basically, whenever, many people are now obsessed with the digital technologies, like with the collecting of data through internet, through computers, so on and so forth. And this is a very good means of collecting the data. But we should always keep in mind that not all of the groups, exactly as you mentioned, have access to the IT technologies, have access to computer, to internet, and many other things. So the collection of data through internet should always be combined with collection of data on the ground, from the people on the ground. So that's why I mentioned that some of the data could be collected from the specific institutions. So I think villages in Vietnam probably have some sort of the local public authorities, mayor office, a head of the village. So probably they collect some administrative data, like who lives in their community, in their village. So they could be asked or requested by the law to collect some of the data in a disaggregated manner. So for example, the villages probably now collect data how many people have running water in the house, or how many people have a sewage system in the house, waste system in the house. So basically, we can ask these local authorities not to collect just data how many people, but to collect data how many women and men, how many elderly women, how many middle-aged women, how many young women, how many elderly men, middle-aged, and young men. So this could be collected at the level of the local public authorities. And that's what is being now done in Moldova and Ukraine, two countries where I work now. So more and more data are collected in this way by the local public authorities, by the mayors. And that's how this data gets into this table, which you see now on the screen. Okay, if I can share the advantage limitation of human rights-based approach in developing countries. That's a good question. I don't have a very, how to say, a firm answer to this. This is actually part of my current ongoing research as part of my doctoral degree at the University of Ottawa. I'm trying to understand whether the human rights-based approach not only is applied in which countries is applied, but also whether it can really get some roots in all types of the countries. But I will just share some of the observations that in order to implement human rights-based approach, any country should actually have some basic level of understanding of equality, of the issues around equality, and about human rights, some basic ideas. It's not possible to implement human rights-based approach without understanding some basic ideas about human rights. So that's observation number one. And observation number two, you really need to have activists on the ground who are willing to move human rights-based approach. If you recall this short video which I showed you just before my slides on human rights-based approach, if you looked attentively to the video, you probably noticed that first on this small island, a man came from an international agency who came with his solution. He wanted to build a bridge. And locals were not particularly enthusiastic about that. So they kind of were not sure whether the bridge is the best solution. Only when a woman, another agency, international agency came, and this woman actually put the locals to be the main leaders of the process, the locals came out with good solution. So the same applies to human rights-based approach. Human rights-based approach cannot work if local people do not buy into it, do not understand it, and do not find it useful and important. No Slava from Canada, no Joe Biden from America, or no Putin from Russia can come and implement human rights-based approach in Vietnam. It only can happen meaningfully if the local people really find it useful and important. So yeah, this could be just my two observations. Whether you have these people in Vietnam, I do not know. Unfortunately, I've never been to Vietnam. All my activities were online. So whether Vietnam is ready for such an approach, that's more question for you rather than for me. Okay, so if there are no further questions, then let me show you the last slide. Which is basically checkout questions. These are the questions, almost the same question which you answered at the beginning, but just to make sure that you did understand the contents of our training. If you can answer to all this, sorry, I will open it once again. It stopped. If you can answer all of the questions which you will see on the screen, then it means that our training was successful, and that you now understand the main points of these two approaches, like human rights, gender-based plus analysis, and human rights-based approach. Sorry, I'll just switch to the last slide. Somehow it slipped, and we'll show. Okay, check out questions. Slideshows from current slide. So you see the question, right? It's on the screen. So if you can answer these 5 questions, then we are good. Then the training was successful.
Okay, perhaps among us, we try to putting ourselves like students. Okay.
I mean, no, I mean, I don't ask you to answer these questions in the box. It's a self-checkout question. If you for yourself can answer these questions, then we can finalize our training.
Okay. It's not going to say Có ai trả lời được câu hỏi 3 không ạ? Thắng đang không biết trả lời câu hỏi 3 như thế nào.
By the way, just wanted to, I will leave here my email. Whenever you want to reconnect with me with regard to the human rights-based approach, particularly, please feel free to write me, and I will be happy to help you with additional information, books, articles, and so on and so forth. So, okay, so here is my email.
Yes, so actually we have set up a Facebook group so that you know, the participant can somewhat share the knowledge, and perhaps you know we can organize other events in a later time. Okay, so so actually this is the end of Mr. Slava presentations and sharing today. I don't know if you have any questions about the lectures today. Okay. Vâng, bây giờ thì nhờ bởi vì là để có thể để kết thúc được chương trình ấy, thì nhờ các anh chị có thể đánh giá hộ cho ban tổ chức cái form ạ. Và tất nhiên là Thắng cũng muốn là nếu có thể chúng ta cũng thảo luận một chút về cái việc rằng là không biết là các anh chị sẽ dự định, tức là có thể cái kiến thức hoặc là những cái gì mà chúng ta có thể ngày hôm nay ấy, chúng ta có thể dự định làm gì với nó được không ạ? Tức là chúng ta cũng để biết được rằng là ok, cái kiến thức ngày hôm nay chúng ta có thể dự định làm gì. Ví dụ như phần lớn các anh chị giảng viên chắc chúng ta sẽ áp dụng nó để giảng dạy, đúng không ạ? Nếu chúng ta có một cái idea về cái việc chúng ta sẽ làm gì tiếp theo không ạ? Vâng, thì chúng ta đều là trainer mà cũng đều biết được rằng là cái impact, cái tác động của cái phần training của mình nó sẽ đi về đâu. Thì nhờ các anh chị có thể share luôn vào trong chat box, hoặc chúng ta có thể bật video lên rồi chúng ta có thể nói cũng được. Thì bây giờ cũng là cái phần bây giờ cũng là khoảng 12 giờ đêm. Vâng, 0 giờ ở bên chỗ anh Slava rồi, nó rất là muộn rồi. Thứ nhất là nhờ các anh chị trả lời bằng cái questionnaire này, và hai nữa là cái chúng ta định làm gì á. Và ví dụ chị Viên Chi thì đã nói là let's update my lectures này. Yeah, because I'm asking the questions about what the participant will use the knowledge today. Okay, nhờ bởi vì thực ra trong cái form thực ra cũng phần lớn là sau khi kết thúc cái chương trình á, nếu mà có thể nhờ ban tổ chức các em ép một cái câu vào trong cái mã hỏi được không, để cho các anh chị trả lời á, bởi vì phần lớn là vâng bị drop cái form đấy, nó cũng cái lượng trả lời nó bị nó hơi bị nhỏ hơn rất nhiều so với lại những người tham dự, nên là ban tổ chức cố gắng là nhờ các anh chị trả lời luôn để chúng ta đỡ bị cái câu chuyện là sau đấy phải chasing rồi follow up, nó hơi mất sức của mọi người. Okay, Slava, can you turn off the slides so that we can take a group pictures? Vâng, chắc để check out thì nhờ các anh chị bật video lên để chúng ta chụp một cái ảnh chung của toàn bộ chương trình ạ. Thực ra bên VID cũng mệt lắm, còn đi cuối tuần nào cũng làm event vì tiếc cái kiến thức của các chuyên gia thôi. Nên là cứ có cái đối tác nào có cái gì là cũng muốn tổ chức event để chia sẻ với cộng đồng về mặt tri thức. Thì thực ra phần lớn các hoạt động thì đều là hoạt động của họ nâng cao năng lực nội bộ cả. Nhưng mà cứ thấy tiếc về mặt nguồn lực. Vâng.
Cho mình xin phép mình nói vài câu nhé.
Vâng, ok ạ.
I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you so much for you. Great presentation, and organizers. You have done a great job and help us to learn a lot of things today. I'm going to use what you share with us in my classes. Maybe if I have time, I'm going to write an article and post it. I will post it in my website, Gender Talk, and this website reach thousands of people in Vietnam and international. So maybe I'm going to send it to you. And maybe in the future, when I write a textbook about gender and development, I may add in this two approach to my book as well.
Yes,
thank you so much.
Would be very happy, yeah, to help if the need be. Thank you.
Thank you. Everyone, please turn on your video so that we can take group pictures. Vũ Ngọc Anh, Cao Thanh Phong, Phương Anh, Phương Thảo, Kim Chi, Chiêu Dương, Nguyễn Nữ, Nguyệt Anh, please. That we take a nice, really nice pictures. Okay, thank you. Everyone, the organizers, did you take pictures? Okay. Okay, thank you everyone. This is the fourth and the last webinar that Slava have done with us during the last 3 months. Actually, I think not more than 3 months, right? I think you extended about
6
2
months.
months or so. Yeah, actually it's quite long. So Slava have supported us to organize 4 webinars and also an online course on gender equality and social innovation, and also perhaps he's finishing his mission with us on the 15th of September, and still supporting us to make a guidelines of how to embed gender equality in our activities. So a kind of gender mainstreaming in our activities. So thank you, Slava. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, every participant. And we will love that we keep connected, and like a list, like from something up, and also from I don't know, some I don't see her anymore. The one from the people with disabilities. So we will love to extend this kind of discussions in the future webinar. Perhaps Ngọc or others, you organize a webinar, just collaborate with us so that the message will be spread out. Especially we work a lot with youth and scholar in social innovation and social entrepreneurship area. So we love to collaborate with you in the future events and activities. So thank you, Slava. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And,
thank you. It was my pleasure. It was nice to have this training with you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.